Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Uh, we're gonna be going over The Suicide Squad, directed by James Gunn. Oh god, I hope I don't flub a name that early on. Anywho, just recently watched it the other day, and I'm just gonna go over my thoughts of it. Little preamble to that, just TLDR on my thoughts on the first one. Uh, Hot trash, 5 stars. It has a lot of flaws to it, but it did everything to stylistically appeal to me and still make me enjoy it. But I still recognize all those flaws with it. I had a great time with the first, despite itself. For the second, I think it opens off amazingly with the opening set piece there. With God, I can't remember Woody Harrelson, I want to say. Forgive me if I'm wrong about that. But just him in a jail cell, throwing a ball at the wall, killing a bird with that, then getting drafted into the Suicide Squad, and then seeing everything just go wrong. Just comically, cosmically wrong. What's it? And then him losing it and trying to bail. Oh, I probably should have said spoilers. Yeah, well, there's more. It's literally the opening scene. There'll be actual spoilers I'll go into later. Anywho, yeah, he just tries to flee, and of course, he's like a obligatory, you know, prove that we're serious about these bombs in the neck thing. You know, the whole core conceit of the Suicide Squad. They either do it and get time off of their jail sentences, or they get their heads exploded. But yeah, that's one of the biggest problems I have with the Suicide Squad, not this film, but like the concept of it, whether it's video games, comics, films, just the core concept of Task Force X, it's just inherently wasteful. As soon as like you've developed a character enough to the point where you like them, they're either killed off, or they just get go away in terms of the comics. But yeah, just the films, they die. Not to mention, again, your obligatory character to show, hey, yeah, we're not like other superhero films. We can kill characters off. But then at the same time, it doesn't feel like you can, you have to, which doesn't hold the same weight. Just as the same way, they're never gonna like fully permanently kill off Superman in one of the mainline PG-13 films. It's like they're gonna bring in that opening character to blow up to show it's serious, just like Slipknot in the. God, I could remember that name, but not if the actor was Woody Harrelson. Jesus, what? Why does my brain store information the way it does? Anywho, Slipknot, who immediately tries to escape, and gets his head blown up for it. Bizarre. Yeah, but I never really resonated with that. It always kind of like sours me a little bit going into anything related to the Suicide Squad. Because, yeah, especially for comparison, the Assault on Arkham, the animated one that is tied in with the Batman Arkham universe, like, very good. Got me very interested in the characters, And it's like they just. God, it wasn't King Shark that was one of them in it, but was certainly along the same lines, remarkably so. I can't remember what his name was. He had like a kind of mechanical jaw they used to eat people. Anywho, he had a good action and kind of developed a sort of relationship with Killer Frost, where I was interested in seeing them interact more. But of course, like they both die, and it's like in ways that are very anticlimactic. I've gone in a tangent here about how this whole thing, but yeah, not a big fan of that core conceit. Also, on to the note, tying this back into the film I'm supposed to be talking about. Like I said, everything was going comically wrong, and I do mean comically to the point where it kind of undercuts like his whole freak out, soldier breaking at word. We get the feel he's somewhat of a sociopath, but like even all of this violence breaks him, which starts off with Pete Davidson being Pete Davidson, despite whatever they may insist, betraying the squad and getting his face blown in by the people he betrayed them to. And I just really want to bring this up. My brother, who I watched this film with, said Pete Davidson does not deserve to be in this film. I love that. Uh, but at the same time, it's like somehow Pete Davidson is a big star, and him being literally the first death on screen does cement. Yeah, literally anyone and everyone could die at some point. You have no security with anyone. But again, it's nice to have it as an option. I feel like this film has a minimum quota of people it has to kill off, which kills my mood. Anyhow, that's enough dissecting the very opening segment. Moving on, turns out this whole cluster F, I'm not swaying in a review for an R-rated movie, sure, was all a smokescreen. I probably with Amanda Waller knowing full well that Blackguard, I believe it was going to betray them. So that way, it would draw all the forces down to that beach, and she'd send the main squad with Bloodsport, Ratcatcher, the Polka Dot Man, Peacemaker, and King Shark onto another beach just a couple miles up. Anywho, everyone dies in that first battle except for Harley Quinn and Rick Flag. She gets captured, goes on to do stuff later. Rick Flag meets up with the local militia that are trying to fight for their freedom. Yes, yes. Oh, freedom from who, you may ask? Well, there was a royal family who has now been offed, creating political instability within this island nation. And right now it's a military government that they are trying to fight back against, and royal family before that. Yeah, and Rick Flag's vibes, as you do know. A humorous scene trying to get him back. Turns out he could have come very easily, and there was a lot of unwarranted murder, which is to be expected when you employ supervillains to carry out your illegal military actions. Just so much to nitpick at the core concept of the Suicide Squad, but still. It was a fun time. It was a fun action scene. I won't go into it too much other than to state it did manage to have a humorous time despite the violence it was engaging in. Well, because of it. Anywho. Ah, God, just trying to keep the flow going because I can't edit this. Oh no, I'm just gonna go silent, aren't I? Yes, then they sneak in and trying to capture one Peter Capaldi, aka the Thinker in this, which I, I kind of wasted your Peter Capaldi and your Thinker. It could have just been a generic nameless scientist. I don't know why they needed it to be the Thinker. I don't know that much about said character, but I know enough that this is very much underutilizing him, and spoiler alert, he does die late in this film. For justifiable reasons, like revenge. We'll get into it, but uh spoiler alert, the word defile is like a key motivator behind that killing, so okay. Sure. Sure. Ah, God. And there's a nice little breakout scene, but that doesn't last too long. Now, they rather futilely try to rescue Harley, which I say futilely, primarily because she gets herself out just fine. And it's like one of the absolute best action scenes in the film. Well, Harley is not in the same place. There's a whole side part. I God probably could have made it a little bit tighter and fleshed out some work with the rest of the characters by removing a part I almost completely skipped over in this review of the El Presidente uh, falling in love with her for some reason, seen as a spirit of rebellion. Sure, okay, why not? Anyhow, they have a wild time. What's it, Harley? After he goes on about like, oh yeah, imprisoning my political enemies, including children, shoots him. Kind of gets all weird, like saying if look far prettier with all the empty thoughts, ugly thoughts drained out of your head. Which, okay, I thought she was supposed to be an anti-hero, but I, gue- I guess the ends because the reasons for it are like no, no, that goes into some unsettling territory there. But the only other major thing of note to that is like within recent years, and at least in the DC comic side, which then affects things with the movies and games to a certain extent. Holly's kind of been pushed to be this anti-hero adjacent to Deadpool type to kind of fill that air quote void. But it's just there's never been the groundwork laid out to fully motivate her to that. Like Deadpool himself still has like a moral compass and ethics, not the same standard as everybody else, and is certainly more willing to kill than a lot of people. But at the same time, he does have those principles. Whereas, like, I don't know if Harley has any, but the most basic and generic. Like, because she gets caught again for apparently road rage in a what's in a bank. And it's like, okay, so she's still committing crimes, she's still killing people. I don't. Is she an actual anti-hero in this universe? Because her last outing wasn't that much. She was the protagonist, certainly, but I don't think there was like any heroes except for the birds of prey in that film. And it's like the presence there kind of like messed with the flow of it. So I don't know. And like part of that whole push to into this void has shifted her connection with what's it, the Joker, to like romantic partner to former former partner, focusing on like the abuse. Not to say like, hey, it wasn't that much of bad. Like it's the Joker, you know what he's like. But at the same time, Harley Quinn was originally introduced to have someone for the Joker to play off of and interact with, and just get more comedy out of, and like multiple iterations from like the 90s and early thousands. Like it did that pretty well and was very funny, and also managed to acknowledge the dark aspect of the relationship from the Joker, but also Harley still being a criminal, doing bad things herself. But then Mad Love like really focused it on the abuse, like within the origin story, which I do like it, but at the same time, because now Harley is solely defined by the Joker in every way, and antagonism towards him. Not even just like in a script sense, but in a metatextual sense, like in this film, which is why I wanted to bring it up. She killed the president because, like, hey, whenever I see a red flag, I gotta kill that would-be boyfriend because I just have all the bad boyfriends, the worst taste in men, because like she was in a relationship with Joker, meaning every relationship she must have ever had must have been with toxic individuals. There was no healthy relationship in the bunch. Just I don't know. I I really don't know. Yeah, that's a whole rant about Harley Quinn out there. Like I like Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. Don't get me wrong. I just feel like no one knows exactly what to do with the character or who the character is anymore outside of a name and vaguely trying to fill the same space as Deadpool. I certainly don't. Like, I know what's it, the original version from Batman the Animated Series, and like other interpretation along those lines within like the Batman, the animated series. I have to qualify now. Like when I think to like modern Harley Quinn, I honestly don't know, other than just vaguely bombastic. Like the original, like keyword I would describe with that is kind of bubbly, nice, friendly, interactable, while still being like a supervillain. It was like a good interaction, which was also like paired with the Joker, someone more cynical but also equally bombastic, created good dynamics. Was now, I don't know. I just trying to be Deadpool. They are. Anywho, after all that, because killing the president, that's she got a get out of jail free card and decided to burn it. So she's being tortured and then proceeds to break out, which provides one of the best actions set pieces within the film of Harley just like uh, slowly starting off with just one guard that is in a room with her, keeping an eye on her, takes care of him very slowly, and it just ramps up from there, from a small group to a larger group to just dual wielding machine guns, screaming while music is playing, blaring over her screams. In her head, I must imagine, or at least metatextually for the audience. Just into a group of soldiers. It is fantastic. And after that point, she's trying to get out and notices, hey, Rick Flag was rather insistent on rescuing her. Anyhow, that's how the group all gets together. And then they go to actually accomplish the mission, which is not what it seems. Yes, surprise, surprise, they're there, or at least what's it, John Cena, aka Peacemaker, was there to ensure some specific data tying the US government to the horrific experiments that was going on with the, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, a Nazi base from like the world, just after World War II, on Stardo the Conqueror. Yes. Basically, US government was involved. He doesn't want that gang out there. Yeah, and that's how Peter Capaldi is killed, and also, yeah, I said it earlier. It's like, okay, it's I don't know how to feel it. It's a little kaiju, but it's like, please save me. He's been torturing me for years and defiling me. How am I supposed to feel about that? It destroys a city later, but at the same time, it's clearly a victim of abuse. I don't know where to go with it from there. But yeah. Rick Flag has had like enough of Waller's. I'll give myself the one. Enough of Waller's shit. Just done with her. Because like constantly being on missions doing her bidding. Just this is the straw that breaks the camel's back, and he's rather insistent on leaking this information to the press. Make sure it's a big old incident. But yeah, like I said, Peacemaker don't want that. He just didn't want that. And it leads to another magnificent fight scene. The fight scenes within this film are amazing. I just love them so much. Especially what's it the very start of the fight after the building gets blown up. That yeah, just they've destroyed the entire thing as well. Or at least we're trying to, but things didn't go quite right because the military closed in on them, and it's like a whole thing. Anywho, anywho. Now where was I? Oh yeah, I'm gonna probably circle around to cover some of the character stuff because it's nice, but it's kind of separate from the plot and like describing over the things. It's meh. Anywho, opening bit of that fight starts with a reflection in Peacemaker's helmet. It is beautiful. And to tie it in with something I'll be quoting later, Doctor Who recently did a terrible episode, Return of the Sea Devils or something, and it's like, though it had such an awful fight scene within it between a group of people and a group of sea devils that you have no idea what's going on. Whereas in this film, I can tell perfectly what is happening between two characters based on a reflection. It's like that good here and also that bad there. It's not like one elevates the other and one kind of lowers it. These are, we're looking at a 0 and a 10 here. Just complete polar opposites. Just amazing here, absolutely terrible there. Anywho, that fight goes on. Flag is an idiot because when he has the chance to just kind of like keep hammering away on Peacemaker's head without the helmet to win a fight, he decides to take the slow approach and strangle her out, which gives Peacemaker enough time to get his senses and come up with a plan. Well, I say plan. He just grabs a bit of porcelain nearby and stabs Rick Flag in the heart. That's major spoilers right there. And honestly, completely surprised me. I I don't know. I didn't expect Rick Flag to die. I just did not. It did not come into my head as a possibility because they did bring back Boomerang for this, killed him off in that opening scene as well. And I thought, like, okay, that's the big establishing one. And, we might get some of the more side characters, killed off as we go, which we did. But, like, honestly, when I saw it, I was baffled and a bit heartbroken because surprise, surprise, the only like moral compass in the film, the only one that isn't a supervillain that has an explosive in the neck, is really likable, and you feel bad when he dies. But yeah, also thing to note of that is like this is hyper specific, and I wouldn't really bring it up that much, except for the fact they showed us like a Mortal Kombat X-ray shot of it happening. So yeah, stabbed with a piece of porcelain right in the heart, but it's like right here on the sternum, and it's like dead center in your heart, at least from the X-ray shot. Also in the center, but your heart's just slightly to the left, not massively, but enough where it's like if you wanted that to match up, it should have been moved slightly over. If you just did the stab and Flag died from that, I wouldn't question it. But you showed me the X-ray shot. You showed me that shot. And now I am just obsessed by the fact that it doesn't properly line up with how things would be. But yeah, Flag is dead. But what's it? Ratcatcher 2, Genesis, the daughter of the original Ratcatcher, who rabbit on her story. I liked her, but like it's easy to look over. I want to see her again in any sequels to this, but anywho, her father, the original Ratcatcher, taught her everything she knows and everything he knew about his technology and like being a thief and all that, but eventually died to a drug overdose, which was very tragic. And wait, I'm just gonna go over all the other characters before we get into the conclusion. To Bloodsport, who doesn't have the best relationship with his daughter, is only there because, like, his daughter. Yes, I already said that. Anyhow, his daughter is about to get stitched up by Waller, who threatens to have her killed in prison, which is an improvement over the first film. It's the same actress, where it's like. In the first film, it just kind of focused on, like, Waller being tough, whereas this does get to. You should hate Amanda Waller, in whatever story she's in. She is a complete hypocrite and just as bad, if not worse, than any of the supervillains featured within a Suicide Squad story. But she's just employed by the government and thus allowed to get away with her bad actions. Beyond approach, because it's like for the greater good of a nation or just like morality as a whole, that whole, what's it? Hey, people, other people are going to do dark things. We need someone to do dark things on our side to protect us, and in turn gives her a blank check to be just kind of evil. Like, massively evil in a way that cannot compare to like any of the villains we see within this. Even like comparing it to the previous film, like the Joker, I'm pretty sure like Amanda Waller is responsible for way more deaths and way more destruction than the Joker has ever been. And with this one day that I'll get into a moment, like this one day that Amanda Waller is responsible for trumps everything, all the destruction, carnage, and mayhem some of the supervillains have caused. It's like she's just the bad guy, but in a technically legal way, so no one can do anything about it. But yeah, it is a massive improvement, in this film that you do get that sense of hypocrisy and can really just hate her. I didn't feel that in the last one. Just focus more on like the wall. What's it? God, I believe the phrase is "don't no one f's over the wall" or something. I don't know. Anywho, that's a massive improvement. But yeah, threatening to kill a kid, so not great. That gets Bloodsport in, and King Shark just kind of there, not given the most development, and they also play him as a bit thicker. And I'm not talking about two C's. Not the smartest, unfortunately. It's nothing offensive about it, but at the same time, it's like, oh boy, could it have been? Couldn't it have been? Yeah, he's just there. Cena, what's it? Peacemaker has similar backstory to what's it? Bloodsport. Basically, both of their fathers were jerks that trained them from childhood to be ruthless mercenary killers. Well, in what's it? Peacemaker's case, soldiers, but I believe that covers all the major consistent characters except Polkanock Man, who we'll get into in a bit. But he's fairly decent in this film. I liked him a lot. I really did. But yeah, he has this whole thing with his mother. She abused him as a kid to try and make him into a superhero, and that just really messed with his head, and now gave him this condition where he has like he has to expel polka dots to himself like twice a day at least in order to not die, and they're highly corrosive. Well, not corrosive. They just like dissolve through everything, like some form of matter race or something. Anywho, Ratcatcher saw all of that, murdering Rick Flag, and heard the whole deets behind that, and runs off with the thing. But then leads to a spectacular scene, an absurd scene of Bloodsport just falling floor by floor. Not off of a floor, he lands as the building was exploding on an intact floor, but gives way to another, to another, to another, until he eventually meets up with Peacemaker and Ratcatcher, sees what's about to happen. Peacemaker about to kill Ratcatcher to be thorough. Like at this point, she's also just like giving up the willing to give up the device to save her own life. Uh, but yeah. I should point out, like, he doesn't want any of the information to come out about what the US government did to maintain the peace, but that's not peace, that's quietness. That's the status quo. Like, it is the very opposite of the definition of peace, where thousands of people can be, like, disposed of, killed off for political convenience, and then forced into some horrific scientific experimentation with a cosmic horror from outer space, which then leads to all kinds of nastiness, which we covered earlier. Which, by this point, je ne sais quoi. Je ne sais quoi. The Thinker is dead. Peter Capaldi dead. A waste of a Peter Capaldi, but still nice to have him in here. Oh god, I've now yeah. There we are. There we are. Like, that's not peace. It just fundamentally is not. And I really hope, like, I haven't seen it yet, but I hope this is something that gets more directly confronted within the Peacemaker series on HBO Max. Something I still cannot watch because, for some forsaken reason, it's been nearly 2 years, and HBO Max has not had a rollout in international markets. Why? F Sky Atlantic, for me particularly in my region. I'm sure there are other similar entities across Europe and other nations. I just want to watch it, but anywho, oh boy, this has been a big old ramble, hasn't it? Now I was like, oh yes, Bloodsport comes across him, and they have like a shoot off, and it is a lovely little thing. Like, it doesn't last long, but it is a spectacle. I won't spoil what exactly is, because I do recommend just going into it and waiting to see that. It's a lovely bit. Anywho, Bloodsport wins, acquires the file without really destroying it, just waiting to see what they'll do with it. And everyone gets the sense that, they've survived, made it to the end of the day, they're gonna be just fine. And then, what's it, Ratcatcher? Wait, no, is it not Ratcatcher? I think it might actually be that, but it also controls Rat, so it's like that would be a weird name. Anywho, brings up, wait, what about Stardo the Conqueror? And they're like, what? And then it like pops up out of the ground, and like I said, starts to lay wreck on the city, saying it is mine now. I guess living up to the Conqueror name, but oh well. And yeah, like Waller is quite insistent on them just getting out of Dodge now and just letting this kaiju run amok in a city. Again, more destruction than the Joker has ever caused in most timelines, other than maybe the Injustice one, which involves him nuking Metropolis and killing Lois Lane and turning Superman into an authoritarian despot that eventually kills him, but he laughs as he dies. It's epic, but like again, Waller is just worse than so many of the supervillains in this film. Does a good job of hammering home that hypocrisy, especially because like it's the tech support all around her that has to like pick up one of her golf clubs that she was using to senator. It doesn't matter. It gets a golf club into the scene. Whack her upside the head so the Suicide Squad can continue and go in and try and fight Starro to, in some vain attempt, maybe save the city, maybe die trying, but it's like they just can't walk away from that. And again, Waller really wanted them to. I will say it was one of the happiest moments in the scene in the movie, just seeing Waller get hit upside the head. Was so genuinely cathartic, which is good. Like a Waller should be a vile character that you hate. Anywho, yeah, they're doing the best. What's it? Bloodsport has this like throughout the film, this kind of like sort of nanotech unfolding technology, making guns and all that, and he's got a big cannon now, and he's just shooting into Star, but it's not making a dent. He's telling King Shark to like num the Starro, and it does to an extent. Then he gets thrown into a thing. Harley climbs up high, but then gets knocked down as buildings destroyed. I will say it could have been a bit better. I like the very final bit, but I would have appreciated it being more of a team effort, especially because like we Polka Dot Man just fires into Starro, and like as with everything else, his polka dots just dissolve right through Starro's matter, not slowing down a bit. And it's okay. You can make a team effort out of this with like Shark, Polka Dot Man, Ratcatcher. What's it? Bloodsport. There we are. Harley. It's all there, but like, King Shark's thrown to the side, and again, Polka Dot Man is killed, which at this point, I am just not up for any more main character deaths. Like, you've already gotten me with, like, Rick Flag. Like, I felt really bad about that. Like, again, the only thing close to a moral compass in this film, and, an unambiguously good character. Again, not someone that has to be sort of redeemed or find redemption, either intentionally or just like naturally through empathy, not wanting to leave people to die due to a giant starfish. Just a good character is already dead, and it's like, okay, from that point on, I don't need any more main character deaths. And like, when I see, especially after like tearing through a chunk of Starro, just poking at man, getting slammed down by one of his tentacles, which I guess is supposed to be for a joke, which sometimes the main character or like squad member death jokes are like comedy wise don't always hit. Like they hit when it's serious with Rick Flag and like Boomerang, but the more comedic ones just never really landed with me. And with this one in particular, I was just so done. So done. I was just frustrated that he died, you know? I really wanted to see him like make it to the end, especially because like I don't know the actor's name off the top of my head. He did a very good job with the character. He was very likable. Like in the same way, I haven't gone in to a lot about like very specific things with Bloodsport or Ratcatcher, but again, I really liked all three of those characters a lot. And for Bloodsport and Ratcatcher, I would love to see more happen with them, either in a third Suicide Squad film, or just somewhere else in the DCEU. Like, I'd love to see them return to these various roles. And I would have loved the same for Polka Dot Man. And again, my core complaint with the Suicide Squad as a concept, the very concept of it, not this film in particular, it is wasteful. Killing Polka Dot Man off in this way is just wasteful. I'm not there for it. Especially because, like, after that happens, like, the star dies pretty easily. It's like, why couldn't a Polka Dot Man live? Why couldn't it have been a bit more of a team effort with King Shark more involved and Polka Dot Man living through it, you know? You very easily could have, because, like, after that point, what's it? Ratcatcher almost dies, but, like, Bloodsport manages to save her. And she summons an army of rats, like truly a staggering number of them, an unsettling amount. I should also mention, like throughout all of this, I rather ironically, Bloodsport was afraid of rats because his father locked him in a box of them, starving rats, for his like 10th birthday. So yeah, yeah, awful father, awful father. But like the irony is appreciated as like she summons like a horde of rats to go and attack Star that washes over them, and she has to kind of like comfort Bloodsport after just being saved by him because he's like freaking out a little bit, not massively like Woody Harrelson did when he was trying to just run from the sights of war at the start of the film, but he's clearly discomforted by it, which I found was a nice scene. Like they play well together. Like since the way early in the film when they like said they'd make sure each other would make it out of this alive. Like they just have good chemistry as characters. I'm not saying like romantic or anything, but just that it's just two characters that play well off each other. Anyhow, a bunch of rats climb up Starro. Harley Quinn has this spear from someone who died on the opening beach, jumps at the eye, penetrates it for lack of a better word, phrasing, which allows the rats to come on in and start eating it from the inside out. And it's like, okay, that's the point. You could have had Killer Shark climbing all over this as well, biting it in, Star trying to knock him off, but he just keeps moving around too much and then hops into the eye as well. That could have worked. you know? And just have like Polka Man just take out the stumps of its legs so that way it can maintain balance and just falls over. There was a way to include them in there without killing one off and throwing the others aside and keeping it basically the same. But oh well. Oh well. Stardo is dead, and again, well, as he's going, we get from his minions, all speaking from him, he is Legion, from everyone he controls, that they didn't want to come to Earth. They were happy just staring out at the stars. Like, again, like, I feel there is somewhat of a conflict there between, like, the city is mine now, help, he's been torturing me and defiling me for years. I I didn't want to come here. I just wanted to stare at the stars. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. I like it. I certainly like providing an element of humanity to this what's it cosmic horror. At the same time, if it didn't want to come here, you could have rationalized with it, talked with it, or something. I guess it's like the Suicide Squad. That obviously wasn't an option, but at the same time, it's just like, now I feel sad that it's dead. Why are you doing this to me? A BTW, like the whole reason Star gets out and destroy the city is directly because Waller ordered them to destroy the complex he was being housed within, which not only lead to a vast amounts of like loss of life or destruction of a city, and then the property damage, which will cripple it economically, especially as it's coming out of like a military coup that got couped by a local uh, resistance force. There's also millions dead because of Starro, who added them to his legion. But there ain't no going back like that in the comics. You can't like free them. Once that thing's attached, you're dead if it comes off or if Starro goes. And when Star goes, everybody else dies. So it's like, yeah, Waller's awful. Anywho, what's it? Bloodsport doesn't release the evidence to the press, but instead uploads it to a restricted server that Waller can't track and uses blackmail for his daughter and the rest of the squad. And we get a call back to making him a leader, which, you know, getting all of them out of trouble, like, certainly falls under that. Sorry. Now, where was I? And no, that's pretty much the end of the film, except for the post-credit scenes showing Weasel, someone who died before, like, even. Well, I guess yeah, that he's a CGI thing though, so it's like first like actor on screen is Pete Davidson, but yeah, it turns out yeah, Weasel didn't die after all. He was just playing possum, and we get post-credit scene of him just surviving, spitting out some water and running off. Who knows what he's gonna go do? It, funny gag, I guess. And also, John Cena, Peacemaker, lives to go on to said aforementioned, aforementioned, there we not, aforementioned HBO Max series. Yeah, and that's pretty much all of it. Again, it is a overall, I had an absolutely wonderful, delightful time with this film. There is I didn't go into this much, other than vague praises, but I cannot undersell this. The action within this is superb. It is an utter delight. It is amazingly done. Not to mention what's it, James Gunn manages to keep the stylization, in his own way that we saw in the first film. Whereas like the first film, it's like very much like fourth wall stuff that we're seeing. He manages to find a way to work it into the environment with like foliage telling you like, hey, it's now when you're coming back from a flashback, or like what's it for a brief moment when trying to get their hands on Peter Capaldi to get into the complex. What's it? Peacemaker, Rick Flag, and Bloodsport are captured. After that, they break out, and the wreckage, the smoke is saying Operation Nazi Complex Place. I can't remember what it is. and then it's like blown out as like Red Flag is insistent on saving Harley. That's neat. There's a lot of neat stylization. The direction just superb throughout. Again, the actors really do bring the A game to this as well. For everyone that's on the screen for a major amount of time, I can't think of anyone who I didn't like, except for Waller, But again, not a character you should like. Everyone else where you can find some redeeming qualities or at least sympathy for them, uh, they're very likable. Like, I cannot think of anyone. Like, God, I'm stumbling a little bit. Hmm. What else would there be? I cannot think to see. Again, I think I mentioned before that story could have been just a little tighter. Some of the comedy with the deaths as well. Well, I don't know if this franchise was ever supposed to kind of be a comedy. It's just like they had a few jokes in the trailer in the first one, and then they did reshoots because it tested well, I guess, and then a trailer company released the final edit for that film. So yeah, but for this one, the best comedy comes from the characters interacting off each other. When anything's supposed to be comedic in like a viewer's sense, with like one of the characters jumping on a helicopter and then suddenly screaming out of fear, that goes a little bit too ham. But like the intercharacter stuff does work pretty well. I'm very tired and losing my train of thought. Let's have a little coffee. Trying to think of anything else of note, positive, negative, to go into this film on. Oh yeah, the story could have been a little tighter. Like I said, swapping from Il Presidente to like a colonel after he died that goes on to burn birds, but like I you could have saved yourself a few seconds there. It's shocking, but at the same time, this character just gets taken over by Starlo and dies, so I don't think he needed to be the most fleshed out. You know? I just okay. There's just all a little nitpicks like that. That just you could have made this a little tighter or had that time to expand out some of the characters or even just have a bit more interaction. Because of like you have a whole other Suicide Squad thrown out as a version and setting that up between all the other characters like the El Presidente, setting him up, the Colonel, the Thinker, who really didn't need to be there, could have been just a generic scientist. Between all of that, like I don't there's not as much character interactions as I would like. Between the squad A, we'll say. I mean, what is there is enjoyable. And again, like I said, it's kind of wasteful towards the end. I would have loved Polka Dot Man to survive through this, especially as like final line being, "Look at me, ma, I'm a superhero." He sees his mother and everybody, and like is fighting Star as a giant version of her. Like I wanted him to survive. It's a bummer that he died. Anywho, uh, overall, like hopefully this has been somewhat informative or delightful to watch. But if you have made up your mind about wanting to see this, I would highly recommend like either like streaming on HBO Max where you can, or buying the film digitally, physically, yeah, if you don't have access to that. Because like I I don't know off the top of my head. I remember I've just recently gone over some Hizzy or something. What's it? Honest trailers. Do 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 do. After what's it? Trying to catch up with this film, but I couldn't see it when it first came out because of the pandemic. I was not comfortable exposing myself at that time, and it's like I apparently it wasn't as strong in the box office as it could have been, but like again, it's one of the first films coming out of a pandemic. I believe back at a time when people were a lot less willing to take a risk, at least those inclined to see this type of film. which is honestly a real shame because this film does not to be deserved to be labeled a bomb. It should not be under any circumstances, and I would ever so love to see a sequel to this, helmed by James Gunn yet again. So please, if you do feel inclined to watch it, do purchase what's it, a physical copy or like the digital thing outside of HBO Max to help incentivize a sequel on the back end as opposed to box office returns. Again, this is such a fantastic movie and I cannot recommend it enough, but unfortunately, like, just wasn't the best time for it to have been released. With that and like what's it mixed receptions to the previous two films being Suicide Squad and Harley Quinn, the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. Both films I liked. I think like well there are some flaws with the Harley Quinn film as well. Probably just it did not deserve the bomb, and it has the time it released as well as some trepidation from the previous two films combining together to make people not want to risk getting a virus for this film. But yeah, it deserves a sequel so bad for no other reason than this looks at every moment a piece of art to behold. It is truly, truly wonderful and beyond stylized. I am in love with that aspect of it. So yeah, please be sure to check it out where you can. And I forgot to do this earlier. Oh well, do it at the end. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and watch more VODs. Hit the bell for this channel. I also have a bunch of other stuff I'm doing that you can find via my link tree. That'd be an absolutely huge help, such as what I do a lot of the time, streaming at Sod Passion Gaming on YouTube and Twitch. Take your preference. And oh yes, where was I? Working towards getting a new PC, so things like this could be edited as opposed to me rambling on for like, what's it now? 52 minutes. 52 minutes. We'll have to title this my rambling review of Suicide Squad. You saw it here. This is where the title comes from. The title comes here. Anyhow, working for donations towards that on disability, not the best, unfortunately. So, yeah, just working towards that donation there. About 22% of the way there. Anything at all would be a huge help, and do not feel obligated to donate, though. Your time is already more than enough. I appreciate you being here. Live. Well, no, sorry. I got that drilled into my brain from the streaming. Thank you very much for your time. It means the world to me. And I hope this was a delightful video for you. Now that we have this rambling outro done and over with, I believe it's time for me to remember how to end these things. Now, will it be? I think I have to click the button, so we'll time it right. If it suddenly stops mid-sentence, you know I was wrong about that. So it's time for me to say ta-ta, auf Wiedersehen, until we meet again. Bye-bye.